Welcome to another AMA Fireside Chat. Of course, you know me, Emil Story, and my co-host, Austin Walters, the co-founder of The Success Mentor. Today, we have a very special guest here, Sulman Husain, branding expert, and we're going to talk about how to build a brand that works. Sulman, first thoughts when we say how to build a brand that works. Where do you go from there?
I don't know. No, I'm just joking. But the first question to always address, just so that we're all on the same page here, is what exactly is a brand? And I know this is a question that has been coming up quite a bit in recent years. And so just so that we're all on the same page, what do you guys think? I'm just going to actually ask you both, or, Austin, what do you think a brand is?
I think a brand is like what either a company or an individual is like, what they're known for, what they're known as, right? So something that's identifiable, something that is repeatable. That's what I think about. When I think about a brand, I think about like, what's this iconic thing that someone's going to be known for, or what a company is going to be known as, that's going to like ring in the ears of individuals. Like that's what I think about when I think about a brand.
So that's pretty much spot on. There's one addition to that. I would argue that it's more than that. It's your reputation. It's just what people think about you. And so if you kind of think about marketing is like, okay, here I am. You don't know me, but this is what I can do. This is me telling you what I am. That's marketing. But branding is what people already, like this preconceived feeling they already have about you because of either stuff you've done or what other people are saying about you in the marketplace. So it's kind of like when you're at a networking event and someone comes over to you and says that, hey, Austin, I know you're the co-founder of TSM. Emil, you're the co-founder of TSM. And you do all these guys, like, really crazy things, big billion-dollar deals and blah, 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 and whatever, and they know your history. That's branding. That's someone who understands, already knows that, and then meets you and recognizes that about you. You didn't even have to say that or announce that. So companies, people were the same way. It's how you become known in the marketplace. That's your brand. And you have zero control over what people are going to say about you, but you have all control over how you'll show up. So you can create a more consistent experience, hopefully, that people have of you. So it's kind of like, when you, like if you're pulling really back the layers here and you go back to even something as like basic as high school, we all have friends that were like, oh, that's a straight A student. We know we want to get into that group, work with that friend or work with that classmate. We're going to do well. And then you got that other classmate. It's like, whatever happens, we are not working together because this is going to turn into a drama show of some kind, right? That's all reputation. That's branding based on behavior, based on communication, based on the way you show up. So yeah, it's not your logo, it's not your colors, it's how you show up, and it's how people perceive you in the real world. That being said, we can kind of get a little bit more into, like, I think I also answered the question of the brand model, because back in the day, this is something that Marty Neumeier talks about, and that's somebody that you definitely want to read up on. If you don't know who Marty Neumeier is, research him, Google him. He's like the brand father. He's worked with all the top brands, and he's just got a lot of really incredible insights. So Marty Neumeier talks about the old brand model versus the new brand model. The old brand model was that companies could create, like, these products, right? They would create these products and they would advertise that, and that they would create the brand that would do that through the products and the advertising, which would then get customers, and the customers would come back and they would buy, and that would sustain the business. That was and that makes sense. Today, that's really not how to build a brand, because there's just too much noise in the marketplace. There's too many people creating too many different things, and we don't know how to focus on that. Unless you have like Walmart or Coke money, you really are going to get lost in this vast sea of either sameness or offers. Really, that's really what it is. So the real strategy then comes down to, well, when you look at the new brand model, The new brand model is let's create customers. And that means you got to look at which niche are you trying to tap into? Which niche do you want to focus and appeal to? Who do you relate to the best, or who will your business relate to the best? And from that, you use the voice of that demographic, that niche, to inform your strategy, to inform how you're going to show up, how you're going to sound, all those things. You don't have this, it's not like I can just show up and just be whatever I want to be and there's a market for it. You could, and you could get lucky that way. And it does, it's not to say that doesn't work, but the more practical, cost-effective strategy is find out which group of people you want to serve and get so good at understanding where they're at in their journey, where they're at, what are their belief systems, what do they care about, who do they identify with, what kind of music do they listen to, how old are they, what are they wearing, which, whatever your product or service is, all that stuff matters. Don't abandon. Even it's like when you watch those, those like Jason Bourne movies or whatever, any kind of a crazy FBI investigation. I want to know where they eat, where they sleep, who's their friend, what the last time they used their credit card, where they want to know all those details. And because when you have that information, what you're learning is who this avatar is, what are their habits, and those habits will be very, very informative in how you're going to meet them where they're at. Because if you know this person wakes up at this time and they go to the gym at this time, then that's not going to be the time to advertise because they're busy, right? Mm-hmm. So those kind of things are super important. And when you get really good at understanding them and how they speak, what words they use, that's how you start to inform your own communication strategy. So you sound like them. And they feel like when this product or this service shows up with an offer, or this brand shows up, it's like, I see myself in that brand. So the goal of companies today is to create customers that become advocates and loyal to their brand, who will buy, and through their advocacy and loyalty, as they buy products and services, that will sustain a company. That's the new brand model. So, any feedback or questions on that?
Yeah,
I guess let me jump in and ask a question too, because I think a lot of people that are going to be like listening to this, they hear what you're saying, and I completely agree with you. And maybe you could spend a little bit of time like explaining like client personas and what that actually means to like individuals and to businesses too, with what do and what could client personas look like, and how does it relate to the business in terms of like, okay, well, these are the people that we need to go after. Well, what is that client persona and what could they be?
Great question. So a client persona is really the person that you understand best. That's really what it comes down to. So in the quest of going after them, it is you got to think about the product that you intend to bring to the market naturally. That's the first place you know what that is. You know what you want to do. Maybe you know what you want to do. And even if you don't, that's okay. In fact, what you could do is you could just go to, that ideal customer that you want to be in business with, because you personally relate to them, because maybe you share certain value systems with that demographic. It's like who you choose to be friends with. If you could just like sell to your friends, that'd be awesome. If you could build a business that would just be your customers are just your friends, it would be easy to navigate through those, whatever you want to call it, right? Those hallways, those channels. And it would be easy because you get them and they get you. So you don't want to go so off course that, hey, you know what, I'm going to just completely, like, if you come from a certain world and you really know nothing about this other world, it might not be the best fit to just jump and dive into that, because you'll come across as inauthentic and it'll feel forced. Every decision you have to make will feel like you're just banging your head against the wall, because you can't automatically and naturally think that way. So instead, when you go and you are researching a demographic, it's great to start with an extension of the people that you relate to first. Of course, if your business expands, right, you're going to expand that in the process. You'll have the resources to expand, hire people that will understand different demographics. That's where this, again, going back to Marty Neumeier, he has this scissors, rock, paper analogy, or metaphor that describes the stages of companies. A scissors company will, essentially be in the most, like, it's small, it's niche, and it's good at showing up the way it does because it can do what the bigger companies can't, offer more hands-on customer service, more personal customer service, and it's more boutique in that way. And so they don't have as big of a customer base, but their prices are typically higher because they need to be. And then when they eventually start expanding through reputation, they become the rock company, which will take out the scissors company in terms of becoming a little bit more automated and diversifying their brands.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because now they can cater to maybe beyond that initial niche they started from. Now they got like these sub niches that they're also expanding into. And then after a while, that will blow up to the paper company if they do everything right. But in that process, they lose all that hands-on, because in order to be like, when you're big, you're typically understood as you can provide the best deals, right? Like, you can show up and, like, Coke is the biggest software drink in the planet, but that doesn't mean they're going to come out and start charging you $15 a Coke and then nobody would buy it, right? They can still be really competitively priced and be at the price point they've always been and associated to. And their competitor coming into the space who's just starting out won't have those resources to compete like that. So typically in a stage like that, again, in that market, it's, if you're building a brand for a software drink, you're going to have to also look at reference pricing. What are people prepared to spend? And if you can't make that work in your own business model, then you have to look at your own brand and be like, what am I going to do differently that is going to command a higher price point that makes this business model work for me? Because it specifically appeals to a certain type of customer. So a super long-winded way to just basically say that you have to first identify the people you want to be in business with and learn what they care about. And if you don't have a product or a service, go ask them, hey, you know what, like, what's missing from your life? What's currently an issue? And if they kind of share some intel on, like, what are their pain points, and you can draw something from that, you might be able to make a service or a product that can fill that need. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense. I think we can sum up into, like, step one, which is know your ICP, your ideal client profile, know your market, know your demographic, know who you're going to. So let's say step one's complete. We now know our market, we know our demographic, we know who we're going to. And for what it's worth, I think you'll agree when I say that this isn't just about building your business with the brand in your business. It's about building your brand, your personal brand. So if you're even looking for a job, or you're interviewing, or whatever, what you're putting out online, what you're putting out on LinkedIn, what you're putting out on social media, what you're putting out into the world is adding to your brand, right? So, like, the stuff that I personally put out adds to my personal brand. So if you're looking for a job, or if you're looking to start a business, I think that realistically, step one still prevails. You got to know your demographic, your ICP, or whatever. If you're looking for a job, your ICP is your employer, right? Your ideal employer, your ideal client, ICE, I guess, ideal client employer, ideal whatever employer. Nevertheless, if that's step one, Sulman, what is step two to building a brand that works?
So perfect. Yeah, it expands on the belief systems that you have of the audience that you are looking to be in business with. So you want to make sure that you understand this really, really well, because, again, how you communicate is contingent on understanding all these details. You're not going to, like, there are people who can sell jars of air.
Yeah.
And we're not their demographic, but there is a demographic of people they've obviously understood, and they can communicate in the way they relate. And some people out there bought jars of air. So all this goes to say is that as long as you tap into a belief system that is really core to that demographic, you can ride that really to wherever you want it to take you. You need people to rally behind you for support. So a really great example of all this is look at musicians, look at rock stars, rappers, anybody who's like an icon. They are perfect examples of when personal brands work, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't just love the albums they put out or the movies they make or whatever art they do, but when we learn a little bit more about who they are, like you're just trying to get closer and closer to who this person is, because you see themselves in you. They're an extension, they're an extension of you in some way, and they give you something to aspire to. And that's also really important in branding. Like when you have something that people can aspire to through you, it brings them into the fold more. And religions do this. Religion will provide a system of beliefs. They will also give you this, they'll try to answer some of your most deepest philosophical questions. And that is why they transcend periods of time. And there's so many of them, and people subscribe to one or the other because it's like, well, I believe in what we're doing here, where this is going. So the next step in this process, Emil, is you got to get really clear on your purpose, your mission, and your vision. Your purpose is going to explain why you're in business, why you're doing what you do. Your vision is going to communicate to your demographic the change you want to see in the world. It's aspirational. Do you want to be a part of that? And then your mission statement is simply it's operational. How are you going to achieve this vision? And that vision should be scary. It should be big. It should be bold. It should be a huge thing to accomplish. Like, what are we trying to do here as a team? And do you want to be a part of my team?
So I have a question for you, Sulman, and and it might be applicable from a business perspective, but also from a personal perspective for people that are creating like a personal brand for themselves. We often hear about like rebranding, right? So, there's been great rebrands that have happened, and then there've been poor rebrands that have happened. Like I think about maybe we're a bit too young for this, but there was like the new Coke that came out, like new Coca-Cola, and it was a flop because it wasn't people loved the taste of old Coke, and new Coke they tried to make it similar to Pepsi, but people loved Coke, so that rebrand didn't necessarily work. So the reason why I talk about rebranding is because maybe we have, from a personal standpoint, maybe people are trying to rebrand themselves from a past career that they had in a different sector to a new sector, new career, to be seen in a different light. Or maybe they're going from being doing work internationally to now doing work here domestically. So when you talk about rebranding, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what does a successful rebrand look like, both from a business standpoint, but also from a professional standpoint, and how can people do that effectively?
Great question. It's all about repositioning. So your position in the marketplace and your professional circle is currently what it is based on everything you've done. Now, this is not something you can like rush and change overnight, because people have become synonymous with what you are to them over an extended period of time. And that just basically, so that means your work is cut out for you in that regard as a professional, right? Individually as a professional. It's going back to the whole, artist medium. How do we feel about when musicians cross over to the acting world? What are people's initial response? It's like, stay in your lane until they see what you can do. Yep. And vice versa, right? We have these expectations, which is why people fight so hard and have such an opinion about who gets cast for what roles based on what they've done. When Heath Ledger was chosen for Joker, how many people were hating on him until they saw what he did? And he was arguably the best Joker that Batman ever produced on cinema, right? So there's going to be if you're repositioning yourself, you just got to come correct and understand that there's going to be some pushback initially, because you need to give the market time to adjust to who you are and your business too. Now with the business, it's a little bit different, because when you understand what landscape the market is, like all your competitors are, you can, again, to use Marty Neumeier, you can zig where everybody else is zagging, or zag where everybody else is zigging. And that just means that when you look at what's out there, how do you show up differently? Because in branding, being different is better than being better. So if you really want to reposition yourself, that's the thing you got to think about first. It's like, how are you different? There's too much saying this, that, and the other, and it's not enough. And this is how you will research your competitors. Like I remember for a client of mine, a dental practice, when we were working together on his brand strategy, one of the things I did was I had to ask him, what's like, what do you really want to do in here? Right? Because you want to show up to work feeling fulfilled. So we got those questions out of the way. The next step in my process was I had to be a bit of a spy. I had to call all these different clinics in the area and hear how they talk, hear how they show up, how do they sell themselves. And you know what the one thing everybody was saying to me, because I was kind of going in like, hey, I'm just this family who moved in looking for a dental clinic to sign my family up to and blah, 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 and whatever, right? Because I'm trying to get the whole sales pitch. I want to know, what are you going to tell me about you? How are you guys different? Everyone had the same response. It's, oh, you know what? Our doctor's got like these many years of experience. They're the best. They're the best. Everybody kept saying, we're the best. We're the best. How's that possible? How do you know that? How can you say you're the best? That's just, you can't even prove that. And the more I heard that, the more I took away one thing. And this is what I share with my client. I said that every doctor in the area, their receptionist who's answering these calls is claiming that they're the best. But at no point are they asking me, what am I looking for? What do I need? They didn't care about, understanding me. They cared about bigging themselves up. So if you want to be good, you got to understand your customer. That's got to factor into your positioning. And so that's just something you should do. But that's what I took back to my client. And I said that when your reception answers the call, or whoever's going to advocate for you, don't show up this way, because it just automatically creates this like, oh, we have this air of like, hey, we're amazing. And no one can prove that or disprove that or whatever, right? But if you show up and you're like, hey, so like, what are you looking for? How can we help you? What's your problem? What matters to you? Let's talk about that. All of a sudden, they're participating in what you have to do. And that was how he could position himself differently than his competitors. So it's going to be different for everybody, because as soon as like one great idea takes off, everybody starts doing the same thing, right? So you still got to keep poking at holes. And there's nuggets of gold in Google reviews. What are people saying? What are people complaining about? If you see what people are leaving, like breadcrumbs, either online or if you call them up, people will tell you what they really feel, because there's less of like this, it's going to somehow get used against me. People in the digital age are a little bit more careful about what they say online, because sometimes there's repercussions to that. So that's also important. And then when you kind of take that away, you use all that intel to position yourself as being different, or at least addressing a common problem that everybody in the market that you want to cater to is talking about. And now you have their ears. And at this point, you're going to have to deliver. And if you deliver, you earn their hearts.
So it's super cool, because, even when we're talking about interviewing, or when we're talking about, job hunting, we actually talk about the same thing. It's like when you're going to your ICP or ICE, as I said earlier, you know what I mean? Your ideal employer, you're going to them and you're going, what can I, like, this is what I can bring to the table to help you, or rather, what do you need me to help with? And really, when you're networking, especially, that's a huge piece of the puzzle, right? It's to your point. It's not, hey, I do this, I do everything best. And I say this to mortgage people all the time. Like, don't go around and just be like, yeah, someone asks you what you do, be like, oh, I'm a mortgage guy. No, just make yourself different. I help businesses get money, or differentiate yourself from everybody else, so that you can be the black sheep in a field of white sheep kind of thing. Number one, you said know your market, which I love. Number two, figure out that purpose, that mission, that vision. And for what it's worth, there is a course on Maps called Elevate Your Business from Vision to Execution. And that we talk about mission statements, we talk about vision, we talk about all that because it's super, super important. Step three, we've got people paying attention. We've got our target paying attention. We've got their ear, and we've communicated our mission, our purpose, and our vision adequately. Rebranding aside, what would step three be?
Well, once you have that, you are pretty much essentially, I mean, it's just an extension of what we've been talking about, but you're building out your brand archetype, your personality, and this also is really critical to figure out where your competitors are in the marketplace, right? And if everyone is adopting like the whole, hey, we're suits and ties and we show up this way, then you might have an opportunity there to put on a hat like me and show up instead. Because then there's people that relate to that form of fashion and don't want to be in suits and ties because the suits and ties have already got the other suits and ties. So that's the other thing. It's the brand archetype. It's your voice. It's your personality. It's your tone. This is where once you get all that going, you're not just blindly, hey, you know what? I like the color red and I like saying this and blah, 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 right? That's not what you want to do leading into it. You want to first understand what everybody else is saying, right? So there is a competitor analysis that needs to factor into the equation. You have to really see where everybody else is at and figure out the brand map. What quadrant does everybody lie in? Who are they serving? How do they look? How do they sound? And once you have everything, then you can let the pattern take place and unfold in front of you. So if you see a whole bunch of, for example, like formal spoken brands, you have a chance to be informal because there's a huge market of people who don't like to show up formally. If you have, and this would further extend into the visuals of everything you do as well, right? Like if everything is, predominantly black and purple and green, well, then maybe don't be one of those three colors because color recognition is like 80% of branding too, right? People see something, they're not going to necessarily take the time to like comprehend it on the first interaction. It takes repeatedly showing up, but then over time it's like, oh yeah, it's that, cyan color or whatever. And they're thinking about it and then they can just connect you to that too. So that's also important. But I think that would be the next step in this process. It's like once you have a good competitor landscape of how everybody else is showing up and even in your professional circle, then tap into how can you be different? Because again, being different is better than being better. It's more memorable. And people don't need you to be perfect. It's not even relatable to be perfect.
Yeah.
Right? They just need you to be authentic. And I like to give like Emmy already knows, I'm a huge Eminem fan, but I also think that Eminem is a great case study of a powerhouse of a brand, a personal brand. Because when he came out in the hip hop world, I think it was I remember reading a book on how Will Smith initially responded to him at the time, just before he blew up. But he said that you're either going to be the biggest thing that ever happened to hip hop or you're going to be the biggest flop because of what his lyrical content was before the world had really heard it. And he was kind of right on the nose about that. And when you kind of consider, there was an interview I remember watching M take, and this was shortly after he had some, initial success from his first album. And it was that he was asked a question on TV, live TV. I don't know if it was like MTV or Much Music or one of those things, right? But he was asked a question, and what happened was the interviewer used a word he didn't understand. And so he immediately fires back and he's like, yeah, I don't know what that means on live TV. And that to me made him like, wow, this dude just doesn't front. He doesn't pretend to be anything he's not. He doesn't try to act like he knows the situation or the landscape when he doesn't. He's completely authentic at all times. Like that's kind of what I took away from that interview. And I thought that was really cool because if more people lean into their authentic selves, you don't need to know everything. You don't have to be perfect. You just need to be real. Be real. People will relate to it.
I love this. I mean, you've hit so many awesome nails on the head, and I hate to distill it down to 3 points, but since we're out of time, I'm gonna distill it down to 5. Actually 3 with an anecdote. So to build a brand that works, you got to first know your market. Know your client personas, your ICP. You've got to understand your mission, your purpose, and your vision, and be able to communicate that adequately. And then you got to start really digging into your brand archetypes, and work with those brand archetypes in order to get that mission and purpose and vision across. The other thing that's super huge, and I mean, you think it would go without saying, but authenticity is key. Like, be a real person. You don't have to wear a different hat or be a different person. Just be yourself, and that's often the best way to stand out. In our resource toolbox, you can find a SWOT analysis worksheet. Pretty cool. That talks to the 4 quadrants of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats when you're building a business or looking at your own personal brand. And so I think that would be a great help for those looking for it. In a couple weeks, we're going to be meeting with Cole Yates, the personal trainer for Mr. Boost himself, and we're going to be talking about how to maintain health equaling wealth. And of course, as everyone knows, we're here for one-to-one mentorship as well. So feel free to drop a DM, send a message, and of course, you can contact Sulman directly for any brand tips, advice, thoughts, questions on maps. You can just send him a DM directly. Gentlemen, Sulman, thank you very much for joining us today, and we look forward to catching up.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Bye. Take care.